And she goes, what I'm interested in is you. And I was like, I was always quiet in school. I had a lot of things going on in my personal life, and frankly was over school and pretty bored, and so I didn't really care much about it. My goal was just to coast, to get through. I realized at some point that neither excelling nor failing was one of the best ways to get through and be unnoticed unless I wanted to be, which I often didn't. So much so that I took a lot of pride in being able to extract myself from groups, and people never noticed that I left. I didn't want to be noticed for a lot of reasons. And yet, in middle school, I found myself startled one day because I was a teacher's aide, and my job was to help do paperwork and hang out in the office at the student council. And mostly it's just I didn't want to be in class, and it gave me somewhere to go and somewhere to be. And I was asked that day to do something unusual, which was essentially to proctor an exam. Apparently, this girl was in detention and needed somebody to watch her take her test. And I was around and available for that kind of thing, and so they figured I should do that. I thought it would be pretty boring, but it seemed simple enough. My role was to sit in that room, not talk to her, and let her take her test. I get in the room, and I sit down, and she comes in, and she looks a lot like me. And she sits down, they give her test stuff, and leave. And she looks at me, she moves the paperwork over and goes, well, I'm not doing that. And I was just like, you've gotta, that's what I'm supposed to do. And she's like, well, you're not gonna get in trouble for it. It'll be fine. I don't want to do this test, and so I'm not going to, and I'm just gonna sit here. She moves the papers across, says I'm not doing that. And she looks at me, and she goes, what I'm interested in is you. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I get the impression, I get the feeling that you're not seen very often, are you? People don't pay a lot of attention to you. And she leans forward and goes, I find that fascinating. So, I want to know about you. And I was not ready for that. And we go round and round about this. She wants to know me. I don't want her to. I need her to take this test. She doesn't want to. And eventually, I tell her, okay, if you do this exam, I'll talk. I'll tell you about myself. About what's going on in my life. And we had a deal. We shook on it. She did take the test. I don't know how much she actually completed. But I talked. And talked. And talked. For a really long time. And it was the first time that someone my age in particular had ever taken such a deep interest in me and seemed really particularly invested in my story. And I think about her often. And because I'm face blind, even though we went to the same school, I was never 100% sure if I saw her again. I think so. But then we lost track of each other. And we never talked about it again. We never became friends. I know almost nothing about her and her life because she refused to tell me. But I thought about her a lot, and in particular, as I've been thinking a lot about being seen. I never wanted to be seen. And even as an adult, honestly, I always tell students in my dance classes that if given the option to teach the class and then disappear into the nether and then come back as a random person who wasn't known to the population, I would 100% do it without even considering it. I would rather be no one and unseen than to be seen and scrutinized. So how did I get here? Sitting in front of a camera, talking on the internet to random people that I don't know about my life, about my thoughts. I honestly kind of don't know. And yet here we are. It hasn't been easy though. I've been running away from this reality for a while. Thinking I could get away with not doing it. You know, in college, I avoided one class in my major and put it off. And I put it off until my senior year. Public speaking. I was terrified of public speaking. I didn't want to public speak. I didn't want to talk in front of people. I didn't want to be seen. And yet, for a communication major, it is absolutely required. And I did try to get out of it. I argued with so many people and they refused. And this funny thing would happen where internally I would be so stressed and uncomfortable and uneasy and sweating, and my hands would sweat, and my heart would race, and I'd have to force my shaking legs to make me go into the classroom. And I'd wait and wait and wait and wait and avoid and avoid and avoid until I was one of the last students who had to go because we were running out of time and I had to turn the assignment in, meaning I had to do the speech. And I'd get up there, just like this. And then I would anxiously, from my perception, run through all the things I was supposed to talk about very haltingly, using a lot of filler words, being really nervous and uncomfortable and not sure what I'm supposed to do with my hands, and aware that all of these people were looking at me. And then I'd anxiously walk back to my seat. And my classmates would be mad at me. They would be mad at me, and I'd be like, why are you mad? And they're like, because it was good. It was good. You're good at this. And it's like, I don't feel good at this. You're good at this. I don't know how you're good at this. You just made this boring assignment interesting. How did you do that? And they're like, have you done public speaking before? And I'm like, no, I've not. Absolutely not. Do you not see how terrified I am of having to go up there and say words to you? I still panic before every class and every lecture that I give. You can almost always invariably find me about 5 feet away from the door or place I'm supposed to be, pacing or with headphones in, trying to pretend like I'm chill, but I'm not. When I was about 15 or 16, at home, I basically stopped talking. It didn't feel like it was going anywhere, like it was important. because I was saying these things and being punished for them. I was saying these things and being asked not to say these things. I was saying things that I felt that seemed important to me, and yet the more I spoke, the more trouble I found myself in. Because people don't always like to hear what you really think. People don't often like to hear people say the things that everyone is supposed to ignore and act like isn't happening. And my mom and I got into this fight where I was angry at her mistreatment. And she goes, "Your anger upsets me, so you're not allowed to be angry." And I turned to her and I was like, "I don't think that's how that works. I don't know why my anger upsetting you means I'm not allowed to have it." And she's like, "I wish you would just stop saying that." And so I looked at her and I was like, well, I have two options. Either I can say what's on my mind, or I cannot speak at all. She insisted that she didn't want me to be angry. So I stopped speaking. This went on for many years, where I would speak when spoken to or when I had to, but otherwise I didn't see a lot of point in it. And by the time I got to college, I didn't really know how to talk to people super well, for a variety of reasons, but this is one of them. And I defaulted to not speaking when I was anxious, because I wasn't really sure what the point of it was, and I kept waiting for this other shoe to drop every time I opened my mouth. I never really wanted to be seen. I don't place a lot of value in being in the limelight and actually see the long list of problems that comes with it more of a huge trade-off than any positives that might come from it. And yet, I've been running from being seen, from having a voice that people like listening to, from having a perspective that people want to hear, because I'm afraid. Because I'm afraid of what happens next, and I don't know what it is. Because I question why anybody would want to listen to me, what I have to share, what I have to offer. I'm just a guy at the end of the day. And at least from my perspective, not even a very interesting one. And yet, I've spent the last 2 years working with someone about this. About being seen. About my value as an artist. About the fact that no matter how much I try to hide, in some ways, it just bleeds through. And people see me no matter what. And then I became afraid of what they saw. Because although I like myself, have only been told that how other people view me is as a monster, as a problem. And I would rather not be seen than be seen like that. And I know I'm not that. But in some ways, if everyone treats you that way, does it even matter what you think? So I've been fighting against this for as long as I can remember. I've because at least in my head, people like me don't deserve to be paid attention to by other people. Or it's safer that I'm not. And right now in my life, I'm investing a lot in myself around getting comfortable being seen, around finding ways and ease in not only putting myself out there, but even physically being heard. Learning to project. Learning to stand with my head high. Learning to move with purpose. Learning to take what my internal experience is underneath all of the anxiety of what you all think of me. And to show that side of myself. The self-assured, the strong, the straightforward and compassionate and intelligent side of myself that I'm very protective of. I never wanted to be seen because I was afraid if what you saw didn't match what I knew to be true, if you looked at me and saw all the way down to the depths of me and didn't like it, I worried that I would be hurt. I worried that it would change how I view myself, what I know about myself. That I would even potentially and frighteningly see you differently. But it's time for me to face the facts. To see myself in the reflected eyes of others. And also to force others to see an accurate picture of me.